I would like to welcome you everybody to this webinar and panel discussion. I will going to be the host of this afternoon today, and I hope that you are going to get valuable knowledge and all the news about the state-of-the-art smart ports and what is a smart port vision and how smart ports concepts can be applied in the future. So a very warm welcome to all of you. Unfortunately, due to the circumstances, this could not be held as a live event, but with the webinar today, we hope that you will get the experience as close as possible to being here present with us, with our panelists, and address the questions that you want. So that brings me to the practical tips that I would like to give you. You can use the chat to comment, ask questions, network. I see that you are very good on the right track with that. We are very happy to hold this webinar and panel discussions. We had a lot of registrations. 171 people have registered to our webinar, so we expect that in fact we are going to have an audience of more than 100 participants. So we are very happy to announce that. What is the composition of this of the audience today? We saw that 1/3 of the participants, they are managers, leaders in operations executions. So that makes us very happy. That means that probably the knowledge, probably the insights that we are going to share this afternoon are going to be set in practice sooner than later. We saw that we have as well a lot of subscriptions from CEOs, managing directions, chairs, board members, and as well consultants, experts, and advisors in 21%. And what I'm also happy to share with you that we have a very good representation of the academia. Around 25% of the followers of today, they represent professors, researchers, and students. And I'm going to give you these numbers not to just brag about them, but also upon registration, if you remember, I addressed three questions from which I got answers from you, from the audience. And these answers, I processed them in some graphs, and these graphs are just representative for this audience. We are holding this webinar and panel debate to announce our Smart Port Manifesto. Our Smart Port Manifesto, we want to present it to you, we want to validate it together with the panel discussions, but also with you. And we want to inspire you and later to enable smart port characteristics to be brought to the market. The webinar program of today is as follows. We have a presentation from Professor Wouter van Bokhaven about our Smart Port Manifesto and the SPEED project. And later we are going to have a panel debate. You saw already probably the program for registration. We have in our panel debate Gert de Wilde, the COO of Nxtport International, Jose Sanchez, International Project Manager at IFVP, the Association of International Association of Ports and Cities. Unfortunately, Stefan Breitbach from Port of Hamburg Marketing could not be present due to a familiar event, unfortunate event in his family. But Johannes Betz, his colleagues of him, is going to replace him. Lately, we have as well Martin van der Verde, the Director of Strategy and Innovation at Portbase Port of Rotterdam, Cyril Chedon, chef of the leader of the planification of territory at the Port of Le Havre, and Richard Willis, Port Operations and Technology Director at Royal Haskoning UK. So these are our panel discussions of today. And in order to hook you, to catch you, to bring your attention on this webinar, I'm going to present briefly the topics that we are going to discuss together with these very experienced people in smart ports. So firstly, we are going to start with smart port specifications, just to get a common understanding of what a smart port is. We are going to move to a second topic with regard to the integration, community building, and stakeholders management, all hot topics that are contained in a smart port concept. A third topic that we are going to discuss, and I'm going to address questions about the sustainability in smart ports, smart port city relation and communication. A fourth topic that is going to be debated is a vision on technology and the roadmap of ports toward the smart port. And last and not least, what are their economics, the economics of and business model suitable for smart ports. So all five interesting topics, on which topics I also collected questions from you, from the audience upon registration. So these questions are definitely going to be addressed to the audience. So stay tuned and enjoy the discussion where you are going to find more interesting insights about these topics. And now I would like to give the floor to Professor Wouter van Bokhaven. He's going to give you a presentation. He's going to pinpoint the main outcomes, main key facts that have to be taken from the Smart Port Manifesto that we like to present. So Wouter, you have the floor.
Thank you, Valentin, for the introduction. And also warm welcome, of course, to the webinar from my end. Before we get to the panel to give their view on the future of ports in Europe, I want to tell you a bit more about how we got to here, and why we organized this session around a smart port or smarter ports manifesto. In doing so, I'm Wouter van Bokhaven from Antwerp Management School. I'm representing the SPEED project, which stands for Smart Port Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Development. Just because it was a catchy acronym, but also an important word in there is ecosystems. And I want to tell you a little bit about why I believe, and it's not just my view, it's based on interviews and so on that we did and focus groups, and why we believe that we should be focusing more on smart ports. There should be more focus on ecosystems and a new vision towards smart ports. Okay, voilà. So first of all, the story, the reason why we believe that there's such a need is because we see there's huge potential for smarter logistics. Just think of, well, 11 to 50%, depending on the source, is the savings you could gain. And these are, let's say, inefficiencies in the chain, in the supply chain. So these are current clouds, but with a big silver lining. And the 11 to 50%, that is actually the savings you could make by going digital and going paperless. According to either academic sources, that's the 11%, or 50% according to IBM. Another key fact here is, like, this is another thing that you could eliminate somewhat in the chain or make it more efficient. If you send flowers from one part in the world, in some cases you can have up to 30 middlemen who have to sign off on the cargo. On the other hand, there's also already some clear facts of growth that we see towards smart ports. So what we see here, 115% compound annual growth rate. That's, for instance, the leading player in terms of platforms, IBM TradeLens, or Maersk IBM TradeLens. Up until now, it's just for 2 years, they have a compound annual growth rate of 150%. So there is definitely growth in smart ports. And a fourth fact I want to share with you, if it appears, is that according to McKinsey, the estimated market for smart ports is around 5.3 billion by 2024. And again, that is a 25% compound annual growth rate between 2019 and 2024. On the other hand, it's also a story. Okay, so yeah, it's the potential is very high also in our region, in our specific region in Europe. You see that at the 2 Seas region, yeah, normally they should be animated. You can see that within Europe, the activity, this is even during COVID, you can see that the maritime activity in our region is massive. So it's a very intrinsic, complex, and therefore very exciting region to focus to develop smart port innovations in. Okay. But on the other hand, it's also a story of, well, untapped potential, unfulfilled potential, because if we look at the current state in terms of digital maturity of the industry, then we see that transport and warehousing is not doing so great just yet. And what's more, this unfulfilled potential can also be seen in another proxy, because digital maturity is just one aspect of it. But also, if you think of the war for talent and the war for digital talent, let's also have a look at the industry attractiveness. And therefore, I had a look at, okay, at the global top 50 of top employer brands, how many logistics companies are in there? And I will show you the entire list now. So wait for it. It is coming. This is the entire list of logistics players, and not your average logistic player, right? So let's look a bit further. So if the sector is not performing great just yet, are they trying to? So we looked at the innovation impulse. How much of the gross value added is being invested in innovation? And then we have to say that the innovation impulse from within the industry is not so great. Only 2 sectors perform worse. But just how bad is it with ports business as usual then? And with how bad, there we look at, ports business as usual. Let's look at the life cycle stage. Is it just in maturity stage? That would still be okay, because there you can still be profitable. And if you're in the maturity stage of the life cycle, then there's still you're still in time to change. Or is the industry already in decline, meaning that there's no profit, and some of the players might still be able to change, but for most of them, it's too late. And the thing is, those guys for which it's too late, they won't even notice it, because they're just doing as they've always done, and they're being slowly boiled like a slow-cooked frog. So to answer this question, are we in the maturity stage or in the decline stage? There's typically 2 types of indicators that we look at, 2 signals. The first one is the competitive behavior. And if you look at the competitive behavior, well, if it's completely commoditized an industry, meaning that it would be in the decline stage, price becomes the only differentiator, and it's as good as impossible to build value-added business models through innovation under business as usual. And voila, the first sign is here. Not even the big guys, and so these are the carriers, the CMA, CGM, Maersk, and so on, they're all in here. The big players, not even these guys are making a profit substantially. Let's look at the second indicator. That's consumer behavior. What is the average consumer perception of the value offering brought by the industry? And what have they come to expect of the industry? And in essence, you have to conclude there's little that the industry can do to provide better performance for which the customer is willing to pay. Because what does the customer expect? They want delivery tomorrow and for free, and hopefully the package is still okay, and so on. So the level of expectation is already at the maximum, and we want it for free. So what is then the business as usual perspective that has led to this commoditized view from customers, and this commoditized competitive dynamic? Okay, so here, this picture says a lot, really. This is not a new picture. This is a picture from 1557 by Peter Bruegel the Elder. And it gives a good depiction of business as usual in logistics. It's about big fish eats little fish. Rather than looking for innovation, we try to absorb the others, or we take what is theirs through price discounts or some other dirty tricks. And to be honest, not that much has changed since then. So you could say, well, but we've done it like this for the past 500 years. Why can't it just stay the same for the next 500? So let's have a short look into the future. And the first thing here is, again, Yeah, let's look at COVID-19. This has been a game changer, even though you won't feel it right now, because for some logistics companies, it's even been, they've even thrived thanks to COVID. And it's also, but at the same time, it's also accelerated awareness that we can do things differently. And that what we have been doing so far isn't all that sustainable. Things are being questioned right now, and it's accelerating this kind of awareness. So in the not so long run, expect that governments and consumers will start to question the industry's current focus on physical volumes. Another thing that's coming at us is, so let's not give COVID too much credit. It's not the only and probably not even the most threatening wave of this disruption. So you might have seen some version of this picture, only the text in the blue might have been somewhat different. But when you look at the industry's maturity in terms of sustainable innovation in face of the waves of disruption that are coming at us, yeah, from what we heard until now, it's the only possible conclusion is that this maturity for sustainable innovation, well, it's not very high, and because that would mean that you're starting to view compliance as an opportunity rather than a nuisance. So you don't try to avoid these costs, you try to see the opportunity in there. You try to make the entire value chain sustainable, not because you have to, but because you see the business model in that and so on. Let's say we're not there yet. But that's not all, because even at their own game, those who stick to the port's business as usual are getting beaten. Yeah, the slides should come now. Because on the one hand, the ones that are taking the lead from within the industry, that's the 1% of players who just keep on getting bigger. On the other hand, even those players such as Maersk and so on can't even come close to the budgets and innovation power that some new entrants bring. If you look at Amazon, Alibaba, that's 20 times bigger in terms of innovation power. So if the 99% of the industry still wants to have some say over its own future, it will need to bet now and bet big on the third wave, platform wave, which is being led by some ports and their new generation of port community systems, such as Portbase and Nxtport, which we'll hear today also in the session. So these are all the elements why we think there is a need for a new vision. And what does this new vision consist of? I said I try to restrict myself to 20 seconds per point, so I'll try to do it here as well. Yeah, this new vision, you can read it on our website. We have a Smart Port Manifesto, so I'll try to give it in bite-size snapshots. So the first thing we think that needs to change is going from an emphasis on price competition to co-opetition in a smart port ecosystem. So stop focusing on price competition, because none of you is making a profit this way, but look for new business models. But by a smart port, we don't just mean using digital tools to support your current business model, because clearly that business model is defunct. It's not working. Becoming more mature and ready for the future means making the entire chain from sender to receiver more transparent and more connected. Think of new business models where you can, where these new digital tools can really make a difference. In the current ones, it won't. Okay, it's also going from this commoditized model, which we've seen, to sustainable innovation. So to move from commoditized to value added means increasing maturity in terms of sustainable innovation. And right now, the biggest blockage to do so is mostly in the minds of and the business models of the current companies. So it's about this sustainable innovation maturity. Start seeing these demands for sustainability as opportunities. For instance, delaying the move to green energy, as we have done so successfully in Belgium, for instance, means that you just lose the entire market, the entire market of wind turbines, solar, and so on. We don't have any big players in that because we have delayed the choice for a greener energy. It also means that when you think of digital innovation, the worst you can do is thinking that you will differentiate yourself by building your own proprietary app. That's just not how digital business models work. Trucking companies, barge operators, and so on, they are not willing to install an app for each terminal operator who builds an app for its own. They are not going to adopt an app or download an app for each port they enter. That's not going to happen. So think of integrated digital solutions. If you build your own app, think of the digital business model behind it. Don't keep it for yourself, but try to give it to the community and try to monetize it in a smart way. Next one, if it opens, instead of trying to take business away from your own close neighbors, so the bigger thy neighbor principle, try thinking of the entire chain. Try to build value for the entire chain. And because you depend on each other, meaning that all hubs and players in one corridor are connected with each other. And to really create value towards customers, that means making the entire chain more efficient. So don't go for really big ships, which then only cause congestion at the port level, for instance, as one very visible example. Think of solutions that integrate that make the entire chain more efficient. It also means that you have to embrace outside innovation impulses to break the locked-in chain in its commoditized business models open. So don't see outside innovation from startups, from the platforms, even if it's not a platform that you've built yourself. Don't see that as a threat, but try to see how you can create a business model on top of them. Because as we've seen, the innovation impulse right now is not really coming from within the industry. It also means, in this picture, we've borrowed a little bit, but going from protective chain positions to customer first ecosystem membership. So what does that mean? If you're thinking of the Smart Port, and we'll ask all of the panelists soon to give a 1-minute representation of what they think will be the Smart Port of the future in 2050. Don't just think of what you can do with your own product platform, but see how that integrates with those of others and so on. So try to build a holistic vision, and your company is just going to be part of it. But at least if you build that vision, you will be part of it rather than excluded from it. Oh, sorry. And now the last one. Go from pipeline businesses to smarter network economics at a European level. So if we want to really have an impact and on the global smart ports market, this 5.3 billion market by 2024, if we want to have a leadership position in that, don't try to do it at the level of your own company. Don't even just try to do it at the level of your own port. We have to really, and that's why we're in such a unique situation here in the 2Cs region. We have to think of these entire corridors that we share with each other, making those more efficient, connecting the platforms that we built in our ports together. That's the way we can win the game. And yeah, that was it for me, really, Valentin. So I'm going to give the floor back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Wouter, for presenting the Smart Port Manifesto. And just a heads up to everybody, as you saw here, so Wouter has given us a short introduction and the context where smart ports are developed, and then the key 8 takeaways from our Smart Port Manifesto. And you can find more information about this Smart Port Manifesto in the link that we are going to provide you at the end of this webinar. And there you can read more about each individual key aspect that we addressed in this Smart Port Manifesto. So we are moving forward in our program. So we would like to open now the panel discussion. And yeah, my colleague Lorenzo, if you can help me, you can already put in the spotlight all the panel discussion. In the meanwhile, I'm just going to give you a short introduction. Yeah, it's very important when you talk about smart port to be all aligned, to be all in line with what is the meaning of a smart port and where are we heading towards this, where are we heading as a community. So therefore, we have conducted research on what is the definition for smart port, and we identified these 4, let's say, main characteristics of it. And upon registration, I addressed the questions to you, to the audience, which characteristics do you really see important and should be first initiated for smart port development? And you see here percentages of you who have chosen for one or other characteristic. And you see here that optimize in port and outbound port flows of goods and information is the main priority, the main characteristics of a smart port. Enable technologies, it's also another characteristics of which you more than 68% have voted for. And the other characteristics, which anyway come as a package, a smart port should guarantee the safe and resilient secure activities and initiate continuously and develop, implement sustainable leads. So these were a bit of the outcomes of what you have stated upon registration to this webinar. So now I would like to give the floor to our panelists, and we will start with Geert de Lule, who we would like to address him the following questions. So first, I would like to let him present himself and then answer the question, what is the opportunity now at this moment to develop smart ports, and how would you see a smart port in the 2050 would look like? So here you have
Yes.
the floor.
Well, good afternoon from my side. I'm Geert de Wilde, COO of Nxtport International. Nxtport is a data sharing platform founded in the Port of Antwerp, and we are ready to scale globally now. I would like to thank Wouter also already to mention us. So I think our expectations are already there. I think we meet those expectations, and we will really find ways to develop smart ports in the future. Thinking on how such a port of the future would look like in 2050, I've tried, but it's still very difficult because there are so many opportunities laying in front of us, and the momentum is there as well already today. So we tend to go back to solutions which already exist. I do see public and private data definitely to power optimize secure and resilient processes in such a port, moving containers, but also hyperloops as efficient as we used to move a carton box in a warehouse. On-time vessels running on alternative energy, arriving in those ports, and the port as such being powerhouses for energy to store and generate alternative energies. I personally believe that a smart port can only be built on solid foundations which are secure. And we should not, and this is often the case, but we should definitely not forget the human aspect of such a port. I think humans will remain very important. We should not rebuild the existing ports in a virtual one, but upskill the workers in the port, upskill also the digital skills of people working in such a port. So with a very human-centric approach. And last but not least, I think the mindset, this is critical and crucial in such a process. The mindset of innovation is very important. Remember that if we look at a customer-centric approach, our customers, the industry is already at 5.0. I think logistics is still somewhere between 2 and 3.0. So there's a long way to go. The gap is widening, and I think there's definitely a playing level field there for startups and others to fill the gap.
Yeah, thank you very much, Geert, for this vision on how smart ports will look in 2050. I would like to give now the floor to Jose Sanchez from IVP as well, addressing him the same questions to introduce himself and then to give a small detail as well on what is your vision about the smart ports.
Yes, well, thank you for inviting us and for having us in this event. My name is Jose Sanchez. I work for AVP, which is an NGO, international NGO focused on sustainable port-city interaction. So, of course, our perspective, our point of view differs a bit in terms of not focusing on the logistics in itself, but more on the contribution that a smart port and smart city can make for a sustainable port-city relationship. So I had an image that I have sent before, but if you can show it, it's nice. It's not. Anyway,
yeah.
Exactly. So this sounds weird to talk about smart port and smart city and show an image from the early 20th century. The point that I want to make is that in this image from the port of Lisbon, we see that there is a lot of social expectations regarding the arrival of a new piece of technology for the port. And in fact, in the image, if you see it a bit later in detail, you see that there is people that are normal citizens, not just port workers. And this is, I think, what the smart port approach could, the new technology could actually provide, is a new way of interlinking port and city together. Always, of course, from the perspective of sustainable development. And I think what the new technology can do is regain the attention of the people toward what is the port. We know that in most cases, people living in port cities are not aware of how the port functions. And what the new technology and smart port approach can do is actually increase the transparency and the visibility of what is the port doing, and break this very often negative image that ports still hold in many cases. Regarding the situation in 2050, where we will be talking then about something 20 years after the 2030 agenda. We have now these very clear sustainable development goals that the UN has developed and that our organization also adapted to the port-city relationships. And I think that in the goal towards, in the path towards achieving or not these goals, and in this case also for sustainable port-city interaction, the smart technologies are going to play a crucial role. We identified 10 key goals for this relationship, and I think the new technology is going to have a crucial role in all of them, from governance to protecting biodiversity to climate change adaptation, or reducing, of course, of the emissions and so on. And of course, I agree with the previous speakers in the sense that the human side cannot be forgotten. And in fact, we defend it in terms of the investment in the human capital is not going to be the technology by itself. I think that is going to make the big change. It's going to be how the people operating this technology, developing, operating, using it, can actually put it into practice. So for that, I completely agree in that the human capital that should be developed connected to this smart port and smart port city approach is crucial. And in the end, is go back to this image, of course, in a different way. I don't think people will be back in the port as it is here, but I do think that the port city interface could be reconsidered in a virtual way. And again, back in this, that people can enjoy or can understand, can accept better how the port functions and what the port actually brings to it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jose, for your vision. Yeah, indeed, it's smart ports or future smart ports is about new tools. While in the past we had all kinds of carriages or all kinds of cranes that would define probably the smart ports in 2000. In the 2050, we will have other technologies there that will define this technology, this smart ports. It's also very important how we are going to communicate this to all the outside world. So that's why in our panel we have as well Mr. Johannes Betz, project manager at Port of Hamburg marketing. So Johannes, if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your perspective, how smart ports will look like in 2050.
Yeah, thank you very much and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Johannes Betz. I'm working for the Port of Marketing, which is one of several marketing organizations of the city of Hamburg. Our core focus is on the cargo port handling, and we are a non-profit organization with about 300 members from stakeholders along the entire logistics and supply chain. And as was mentioned before, the interaction with the different stakeholders and people is very important. So, of course, our main activity is communication in that sense. And we sort of try to do a bit of a matchmaking, if you want to call it that way, trying to bring together the businesses with the administration, but also with all other kinds of multi-level governments, stakeholders, to bring out the best. In this case, since we are a city with a port in the center of the city. And yeah, so that's very important. And I think what's needed and what has a lot of opportunity for smart ports is the interoperability. So not only between the different modes of transports that we, for example, serve in Hamburg, but also between the stakeholders involved. And maybe just briefly for the 2050 perspective, it's still a long way to go, and there's a lot of potential, but the Port Authority of Hamburg has been very active in the smart port area already and has lots of initiatives, but we do see the utilization of possibilities such as predictive maintenance or digital twins, not only for city planning, but also for port planning, a very high potential, but also, of course, the aspect of cybersecurity will play a role. Yeah, so there's something like the home port that is currently being established in Hamburg as well, which is also trying to bring a tech lab, a future port lab, they call it, and a regulatory sandbox to the different stakeholders, so that you can try out new things without you know, having the sandbox to try things in regards to regulations, etc. Without having to wait for regulation responses or yeah, interaction, and then you know, push the innovation to have a proper and very good smart port in 2050. I think that's in short for now. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Johannes. Now I'd like to move forward to give the word to Martin van der Velde from Portbase. Martin, if you can also give shortly your vision about smart ports in 2050.
Yes, my pleasure. Good afternoon to everybody. My name is Martin van der Velde, Director of Strategy Innovation at Portbase. Portbase, as a daughter company of the Port of Rotterdam and the Port of Amsterdam, is working on the port community system for the Dutch ports and the connected corridors and ecosystems, as Wouter already mentioned in his introduction. Approximately 5,200 companies connected, covering all the core processes of the ports and the supply chains running through it. So that for a brief introduction. And I'm in full agreement with Wouter when he says that we need to, well, it's not really a need for smart ports, but it's a need for smarter ports. As we see that the platforms are rising, thinking, acting globally, demanding for supply chain transparency, and a search for data of the European supply chains, and really looking for landing points to connect to those supply chains and those corridors. At the same time, we see, well, let's call it a competition between the European clusters that is increasing a little bit. And the third trend I would like to mention is that we see a different ball game with the upcoming of the technology push and of course the standardization. So that leads to a different game, but also to different possibilities. And I think that it's time that we take a more regional perspective on the ecosystems and try if we can connect the dots. Because at the same time, as Fanten already mentioned in the characteristics, we would like our ports and supply chains to be sustainable. We would like them to be secure, human-centric, as Geert mentioned, I think very relevant. And we want to be innovative and bring to scale new propositions and empower the members of our community to strive forward. And in the meantime, we are still keen on optimizing the current processes to reach an operational excellence. So there's the need which we see, and very briefly to see our vision on smart ports. I think if we really break it down, because it's quite a large concept, then it's a data hub connected to communities, local, regional, and globally. And within the data hub, It's a set of or an ecosystem of processes connected. It's a large scale of data, and by bringing forward a centralized infrastructure and moreover, and perhaps even most importantly, the right conditions, so that under a trust regime we can share the data with each other. I think that's the way forward. But I guess we will touch upon that in the discussion later on in the panel. So that's for the introduction so far. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Martin, as well. And now from the Netherlands, we are going to jump and land all the way in France. So next guest speaker in our panel discussion, we have Cyril Chedon, head of the Department of Land Use Planning. So maybe from that perspective, Cyril, can you give us a bit of perspective how would ports would look like in 2050?
Thank you. Hello to everyone. Thank you for inviting me. So I'm from the Port of Le Havre in France, as you said. The Port of Le Havre is at the moment in a process of merging with the Port of Rouen and the Port of Paris. So our vision of a smart port is, of course, a port which is able to aggregate different communities and to work as a smart corridors. But I would say from my position of a geographer working in the Port of Le Havre that, in my opinion, a smart port is a port city. I mean, it's an efficient port and happy people living nearby an efficient port. And the relationship between the port and the city, I would say, are peaceful, since the communities are all right with being a hub, all right with being a place where you still have industry, a place which is open to globalization. So I would say that a very simple definition of mine would be a smart port in the future is simply a port city, like we all dream of.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much, Cyril. And now a last jump over the sea as well to land in UK, and we have amongst us Richard Willis. Richard, you can introduce yourself shortly and as well share your vision on smart ports in 2050, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Richard Willis. I'm Port Operations and Technology Director at Royal Haskoning DHV. And as Valentine mentioned, I'm in the UK. Our company, Royal Haskoning, is one of the world-leading port and terminal design engineers. So we design and build ports all over the world. So we adopt those kind of smarter principles we've just been talking about into our work for our clients. We see that a smart port is one that uses technology to operate with a minimum of waste. So space, time, resources, providing that efficient customer service, but also developing future-proof resilience for commercial reasons, of course, but also, as Wouter mentioned, for facing our coming climate emergency. Important, I think, is that the concept of smart ports is for all types of ports and terminals in every country, in every operating context. So it's really, enabling staff to operate efficient processes by the suitable use of technology to become smarter. And that, of course, means different goals to different ports. I think for the future vision of smart ports in 30 years' time, we'll probably have a smaller area geographically, much less environmental impact, using automation, be fully electrified. I think this can be achieved by tighter integration into the supply chain, as my colleagues just mentioned before, and that will allow improved throughput in a smaller footprint, improved operating resources, using less resources, less equipment, less people. Possibly also in that time frame that ports, ships, equipment vendors and logistics services might continue to merge together, as is the trend now, and become even more interchangeable and more of a standard utility like electricity, rather than competing on a physical level. So that may also come to pass, and smart ports may enable that to happen. That's our view.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard. Very interesting view. Yeah, so this was a very extensive definition of a smart port if you put together all the views and all opinions all together. But there was a touch upon technology, there was a touch upon sustainability, there was a thought about people, the vision on having a port city as a smart port, integration, and last but not least, there was a keyword said and that was touched upon: ecosystem, building an ecosystem. So smart ports is actually about taking a whole community, bringing it together and putting it to the next level. So that is why I'm moving now next in our panel debate to the next topic about integration, community building, and stakeholder management. So let's discuss further on this topic with Gert de Wilde, Martin van der Verde, and Cyril Chedont. I know that they have a lot of experience with community building. So I would like to first show you the results that I got upon registration, and the question that I addressed to you, to the participants. Which of the following elements will play a key role in establishing a smart port? And as you see here, many of you indicated that technology and tech providers are going to play a key role. Port users as well, the port operators, port governance, but also sustainability policies. And lastly, the stakeholders that don't have yet the tools to do something for the smart port, but they can also contribute to moving towards smart ports, are the port beneficiaries, the demand side. Happily, we have together now the tech providers and also a representative of the port users and the land use planning, Cyril. So here, Martin, Cyril, I would like to address you first question on this context. How can you ensure the success of inter-port integration? Inter-port, of course, linked to intra-port integration as well. So you can maybe address the point, the question from the two viewpoints here.
Yep, sure. Well, if I can start off,
yeah.
If I look back at the route we have taken and the ingredients we set in place into growing into a smart and hopefully into even smarter ports, is that we see that first of all you need to have the trust of the port community. So get everybody involved, get a stake in it, as well as public as on the private side. So lay down an infrastructure and a set of conditions on which you can operate. And the first step we undertook is that we digitized or automated the core processes of the port, so that we were able to basically share the dump data, like the plannings and the notifications and the manifests and etc. Under the right conditions, so that we could already create some kind of value just by connecting all the different dots in the supply chains. And later on we have added the real-time events, and I think now we're up to the level where you can come up with and the new kinds of technologies like you mentioned, that based on that same data you have and the trust and the conditions that you can predict, but you can also have all the community players let themselves come up with new propositions, innovations, etc. So you really set at the scene in the community, and I think that's was one thing for at least in our story now, ports, the success of the interport integration.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If I would like to see also, I would like to see as well an answer from the point of view of Cyril here, because you said that you are busy now with integrating these three ports on the axis from Paris, Rouen, and Le Havre. How do you manage that, and how do you ensure the success of this integration?
You know, it's a really tricky question, because we are in the process of merging. The process should have been over in December. It's been postponed to June. But you know, I would say what the first thing which is important is to listen to the local communities. what I noticed 2 or 3 years ago, when the process started off, everyone was trying to find a strategy for an axis, a horizontal strategy. You see, we were looking for what are our axis concerns, what are the axis issues, and we realized that first we needed to think in more vertical and local ways, and to ask the question to the local communities: what is your concern? And listen to the people place by place, and then do sum up, wrap up everything, and then to try to formalize the project. So definitely we are in the process. We have done this approach of listening to everyone in every local communities, and we have now a new strategic plan which is the result of this approach of listening to every local communities.
Yeah, so the key of success, it's not postponing things, but taking your time and listening to all the involved stakeholders.
And listening to the public as well. Of course, at the moment, our strategic plan is in a public inquiry. So we are listening to them. We are taking everyone's remark into account in this process.
Yeah, and finally here, moving from maybe a local oriented problem, but then moving to a worldwide program. How do you would see there? What can we do there to ensure the success of Nxtport integration globally?
Yeah, I think the most important things have been said. It's about trust, okay, trust comes if you have a trusted platform wherever it's located. You will see that local communities are going to build their solutions on top of that platform. And trust is of course something which comes between people, between companies, which is being built gradually. It's not something you just accept as being there. So you have to have the right context. And in that perspective, I think the slide which you mentioned before, which you showed before, for me it shows a little bit. For me, it's a little bit different. The outcome of that is basically the layers before. So all these stakeholders, they have to cooperate and they have to build a trust, and they will find a tech company who is able to provide a solution. Of course, you have to put the right governance in place, and I think that's the combination of the tech and the governance and the trust which builds a successful platform, enabling to have all the different stakeholders connecting, and at a certain moment in time being able to standardize data, to have better connections, one connection to the digital world, which enables them to communicate in an easy way and save costs as well. So I think it all comes back to trust and governance plus the tech.
Yeah, you know, I really admire what you did in Antwerp in Portbase, because it's very hard just to be able to speak between Rouen and Le Havre, since you know we have different cargo community system and so on, and it's a problem of culture and trust, as you say, between people. It's not because sometimes you have a better solution in terms of digital solution that people will buy it. You know, there's historical reasons why people bought different digital solutions. It's very hard to have the people really doing the right choice together. Very hard.
And it's asking a huge investment in time and money, clearly, before you have something solid, before you, and also investments have to continue to go on. The topic of cybersecurity has been raised already by the colleague of Hamburg. So it's a constant investment. But at the end, the result will be what we are all looking for. That's being connected to each other.
Yeah. Yeah, you already go into the direction of the answer of the second question that I would like to address about this tension between companies, about this tension between stakeholders involved in this smart port community there. How to take the step here and then to realize this digital jump and they eliminate this tension there. And the answer to that, of course, it's the trust, building a community of trust around this one goal where everybody wants to reach, what everybody wants to have, and then take small steps in order to get there. So I would like to move on to the last questions from this topic. You see that sometimes port management is often unreachable and hard to contact. What would be there the relevant entry points to discuss ICT innovation when addressing ports to start building this community of trust? What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, if I speak for where we come from, that I do not entirely recognize the unreachableness of port management. I think that looking at the Dutch ports, they're quite enthusiastic, quite some initiatives from there. And of course, establishing a port base together, Port of Rotterdam and Amsterdam together, combined, investing in one infrastructure and a set of services on top of it to provide value to the community. So that's something I would like to say. But relevant entry points. So for us, it would be the port management, both of course, but lucky enough that we have, as Portbase, created an entire community where you can address those questions, and we can together find out how we could give form to a certain innovation, how can we validate an innovation, so that we eventually can try to scale it up. Because I think mainly what we tend to forget when it comes to innovation, that we need to enclose the community members themselves, the customer, but also the one who provides the data, etc. We come to speak of it a little bit later on the other topic, by business modeling and scaling the innovations. But I think that's really important. So don't forget the customers and the ones you need for the data, etc. But that's mainly the case in our ports and our supply chains. We will be very happy to welcome the new ideas and to try to bring them to maturity.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, from my side, I agree. I think the ports which are present here today in this panel are worldwide known to be open-minded and innovative. We have shown that. So I really believe also that there is openness. Of course, looking at the challenges ahead, and we have seen those different waves. One of the next waves is of course sustainability. This is often seen today as, of course, a gateway into opening up discussions, especially when we are looking at solutions which have to be built, or data which has to be shared. We have, of course, seen the pandemic and COVID and bringing us all to a certain level of maturity in the digitalization. Still a long way to go, but sustainability will be the next one. So I believe that we all are opening our eyes and ears if solutions have to come on the table for sustainable solutions.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much for this interesting insights on the topic of integration and community building and stakeholders management. I would like to give you some time to rest now to the three speakers, and invite the new panel discussants that are going to address the topic of sustainability, which was indirectly opened by Geert. So we are going to discuss now a bit on the sustainability in smart ports and port city relation and communication. So therefore, I would like to ask Jose, Johannes, and of course Cyril as well, that has experience in this port city relation and communication, to reply to the questions that have been addressed by the audience of today's webinar. So the first question that I would like to address on the sustainability theme is, how should smart ports make use of technology for accelerating sustainable solution development? Technology are tools, current contemporary tools that we can have, like visual analytics platform. How do smart ports and how should smart ports make use of these technologies? I know, Johannes, that you are involved as well in a project related to this theme. How are you making use of technology to accelerate sustainable solutions there?
Well, I mean, I can pick up on what I mentioned briefly in the intro. The Port Authority in Hamburg is quite active in the Smart Port solution trial and looking at different activities. So, for example, currently they use or try out drones to do the predictive maintenance or on the water level and on in the air. So you can. The Port Authority is also responsible for all the warehouses in the port section, so they could use drones to look at the infrastructure if there needs to be any repairs, or you can use the drones in the water to check the depth of the rivers if there needs to be some sort of digging. So these kind of things, and then the city itself already has digital twin for planning of housing, etc. But this, of course, can be then expanded. For example, as I mentioned, the digital twin of the port, which, of course, for us is very important because of the location of the port, and there's always a very dynamic discussion, let's say, between the different stakeholders and players in Hamburg anyway, because of the location of the port. It requires everyone to be on board. Otherwise, you will face difficulties. So, yeah, maybe that's a start.
Yeah.
If I can just also comment that, I think that the potential of the technology that we are discussing today has the capacity of making visible what for a long time was not really clear, was not visible. So, for example, when we talk about pollution now, thanks to the technology we are talking sensors, networks, and so on, it is clearer than ever the impact that certain port activities may have on the port city environment. So with this technology now, this is visible, as you mentioned here, a visual platform. And by sharing this data and making it available to society in general, it also increases the pressure that the citizens or other organizations that are not directly involved in the port planning or in the port activities, that the pressure that they're going to do to implement solutions to solve these issues. So I think that plays a very relevant role, and this is, I think, the part that, of course, it might be, we could say, unpleasant, or it might be a bit of a nuisance for ports to share all this information that may put them in a difficult position. Because in the end, of course, it's not so easy to share things or to share the information that is going to put you in a position under pressure to act. But I think this is part of the potential that the smart tech has in order to implement or accelerate the sustainable solutions.
I think what you can add is also that one of the universities in Hamburg is what they call like a city science lab with a living lab, where they actually have these modern screens, etc., to illustrate the different scenarios in the city, etc. And one of the other companies in the port doing the navigation, they have a big screen as well where you can illustrate the different locations, etc. So there's quite a lot of things that you can do now to get everyone on board. And we have a vessel coordination center, let's say, which tries to get the communication from nearly from Rotterdam into the port because of the River Elbe and the tide and etc. And it involves the big vessels, but also the smaller ones and so on. So yeah, I think there's lots of technology that you can use to make these things more efficient, but you have to get everyone on board as well to see the benefit of it, to make it more sustainable.
Yeah. Do you believe here maybe in a future port that will monitor all these let's say emissions both from the seaside, both from the land side, and then the operation inside of the port, in order to keep a certain emissions level at a certain level there? And of course it requires a lot of standardization work for monitoring targets or for standards for sensors that should be used there. How far are we from this type of solution now in smart ports?
Not sure. I think there's quite a lot of very different sensors out there that can be used. I mean, I think for now, for example, in terms of emissions, since Hamburg is also a very big cruise destination, there were these initiatives of having landside power plugs for the cruise vessels or LNG barges, so that you have less pollution because the cruise gate terminal was next to people living there, and the machines keep running, so they make noise and they emit emissions. I think there is already a lot of sensors in use, but of course you have to get everyone to share the data. I mean, sometimes it's even just different, government departments, let's say, that have access to the sensors, and then you have to get the different departments talking, or you have to convince that the data protection or cybersecurity is not an issue. But it's got a lot of potential for sure.
Just to answer more directly to your question, adding a bit to what was said before, of course, I mean, we need to speak all the same language in order to take coordinated action. I think it's inevitable to have a general standard that can be used across the port community, and I would even say in certain aspects across the port city community, so that the measurements or the impact that the port activities is having or can also be studied along the city. So for that, I think there is also not just a coordination or regulation inside the port, but over the entire port city territory. And I think it could even go further in terms of the coordination between different ports. We said before also in terms of the development of the technology. And this technology, of course, will be developed by several manufacturers, but they will have to take into consideration what is happening in many ports at the same time. So of course, I think a certain standardization of the measurement and the tools that we're using is necessary, particularly for the ports that are not as big as Hamburg or Le Havre, or this axis of the Seine, or Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Antwerp, and so on. Because the easier the technology is, the more we will see it in other smaller ports that do not have this capacity to invest and innovate. And the way to get this is to have a very clear standard, so the technology is a bit more general, I would say, or more easily developed. So the costs are also taken down and then implemented in more ports that do not have this capacity.
Yeah, indeed. Having non-standards for emission standards or for sensors, that's a barrier. That's an extra cost that you have to pay in order to be able to gather all this information all together. So therefore, the main benefits of standardization that you at once will cut this barrier to entries or barrier to monitoring in a standard way of information.
Yeah, and I think it could even go further. I mean, the port and logistics sector is competitive by nature. Before we were talking about the need to find the right way of competing. So I think it is relevant to have a general baseline, so all ports are competing to be greener with the same kind of information. And then each one will implement its own measures, but that will also help the exchange of information between the different ports to understand what is the measures that are really more efficient.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, thank you very much. While I was looking through the questions that we got from the audience, I saw a question here related to the port city relation. How to create acceptance for port operation among citizens of port cities. I know that there is the experience of France, so I will address this question to Cyril. Because there was a big problem there at Port of Le Havre in the past, and it was in the meanwhile solved, or brought to a result was provided there to this type of communication.
I believe that we all dream of a kind of system that could monitor everything with every data available and a kind of great scrutinizer, a kind of big brother, you know, for port operation. And we would say for the sake of environment, we can have this kind of system, and everyone would agree. But I strongly believe that we should start with small, you know, small applications with a value which is understandable by everyone, and clearly, I would say, people could pay for it, you see. So we should start small and aggregate different operation, different small operation, and then in the end, maybe we could do something bigger. And I wanted to say on the slide before that the difficulties for the port to reach, you said the question about how can we reach the port authorities. We have one problem as port authority, at least in France, we are public bodies and public buyers. So if we want to innovate in something, if we want to implement a new system, it's quite hard sometimes, if you're a public buyer, to work with small startups, small companies, innovative companies, and to be able to do something with them, because we can have a proof of concept, but right after, it's very hard if we want to change, to be from the to shift from the proof of concept to from the prototype to the real life, you see. So it's very hard for us. So what we try to do is to act small before, do small operation, and then have a clear balance, you see, clear of the results, and try what we can do on a larger scale.
Okay, so in a smart port context, this type of barrier of being a public authority or being a private entity that would like to take contact with the public authority, this problem should be somehow solved then. And then the way to solve this is to take small steps on which the value is proved for the public authorities quite fastly and immediately.
And we need to work with the ecosystem. We need to work with local small companies. We need to foster to fertilize a new ecosystem.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for this interesting opinion. I would like to close the topic of sustainability and port city relation here. And I would like to move on to the next discussion topic with regard to vision on technologies and roadmap. And I would like to ask here up front Martin Beck and Richard Willis that they have experience as well to implementing new technologies and defining roadmaps there. And while they get up front, I would like to provide you some results as well with the from the question that I addressed up on registration here. Which innovation cases do you see functioning in a smart port and can be enabled, showcased by your company? Basically, my question that I addressed to the audience is, which type of innovation are you building now in your companies? With which type of technology are you busy at your companies? And as you see here, there is a very nice pyramid that we obtain, and this is very much in line with the maturity level of innovation. As you see here, there are on the bottom line basic innovation developed intra-company, like equipment innovation, big data project, dynamic optimized planning, and so on. And then starting from cross-data integration, e-documents, digital twin, until blockchain, there is another type of group of ICT, of innovation in general, that are more collaborative, which require the involvement of different companies. And then on top, it's sustainability and alternative fuel. So innovation that address these types of innovation, they are seen mostly as an effect of what is happening here, internal or external, in the sector. So that's why I would like to address now a few questions that we received from the audience as well, with regard to technologies that are going to be implemented in future ports. So I would like to have here Martin and Richard. So what are the main challenges facing the adoption of technologies, either that we are looking at technologies to be used within companies or between companies here?
If you like, I'll start, Martin. I think the main challenges facing the adoption of new technologies are conservative, I guess, risk. Ports are naturally conservative, especially those that hold the budgets, you know. So the challenge of trying something new is being able to put together a robust business case for the new concept. And of course, because it's new, that's risky and difficult to do. So I think a way of getting around that really is perhaps to paint the vision of where you want to get to eventually, but then cut it down into a roadmap of smaller steps and just try and build some optimism around the adoption of new technology and relax those risks by trying something new, trying something small, and hopefully it will work, and you can move on from there. I think a lot of it is around mindset. I speak in general terms. The port managers are often conservative and reluctant to try new things because of the fear of it going wrong. Everyone's got a horror story to tell. So it's changing a kind of a more optimistic mindset amongst the general staff as well. And once you start to show that improvements can be made and old problems can be fixed by doing something new, then you can move on to the next thing and it starts to grow.
Roll.
So that's what I think.
Yeah, and from our side and our perspective, we're not that much into the hard technology, but mainly on the data side of it. But what we see is that IT maturity differs a lot. So our companies, public, private, are they able to use new kinds of technology? Blockchain is a concept you hear in every seminar over the world. But try to bring that to the table to the smaller company acting in the hinterland networks. How are they going to reach it? How are they going to use it? And how is it going to help them tomorrow by doing just their business and try to reach operational excellence? So that's one thing. The other thing is, I think also it takes, well, besides some money, it also takes time. And so you need to invest a lot of time, like Richard already mentioned. You need to prove, to validate, to see whether there's value. And when you finally get over that hill, that steep hill of the Gartner hype cycle, then you need to implement it and try to make use of it. So that's quite a burden for companies. And then it comes in handy that you have some kind of common place, call it a sandbox, call it or whatever you like, where you can validate with a larger group of companies and organizations, where you can learn from each other, where you can experience, and when there is actual value and you can use it, you can, well, immediately is always something big to say, but you have the possibility to scale it up and enlarge the value of it by using it. So I think talking about challenges, I would address those.
Yeah, I fully agree, indeed. And projects, I would say, on a European level that opens up these sandboxes are really mindful to develop new technologies, to bring innovation on the market, and then to play with the new technologies. So yeah. Indeed, you have answered already my second question, how these challenges can be overcome. Indeed, so moving forward to the roadmap. An interesting question was that came to us was with regard to the supposition that you want everything, you don't want to miss something out there. What would be a logical roadmap to innovate, to become a smart port? What kind of steps do you have to take there?
Yeah, that's a good question, Valentine. I think from a UK point of view, from UK ports, we do sense sometimes this fear of missing out. We look at what's maybe happening in Hamburg or Rotterdam or Singapore, and UK port operators sometimes feel that they should be doing these big projects too. But I guess being a smart port is not really necessarily about buying a huge system from Rotterdam and sitting it on top of your port. I just use Rotterdam as an example, of course. But thinking even the ports along the bottom of your slide, you've got Antwerp, Portland, Poole, Portsmouth, all very different and have the different specialities and different skills. It's about finding something that's right for their business. So starting from the business model and the objectives about what you want to achieve with your port, whatever that may be, and then see how technology can support that rather than the other way around, I think. And then, as I mentioned before, getting started and do something small to build confidence, put a camera on a gate, build a customer portal, something that's not that challenging really, but you start to build the concept of becoming smarter, and already you're on the roadmap, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I was a little bit
yeah.
At the supposing you want everything. Supposing we want everything, indeed, as Richard says. And I think a logical roadmap, I think, and I agree with Richard, if I understand it correctly, first examine your port, your community, and basically your ecosystem, and try to find the common problem or the thing you want to solve, instead of the other way around. We have a solution, now we can try to find the problem belonging to it. On the other hand, I think it's also a little bit a culture thing. Just try something new, out of the ordinary, out of the box, and see what happens. That could also be of value to innovate. And finally, I guess what could help is that you have some kind of community-driven innovation agenda. And it sounds very fancy and big, but I think it's good to have some common ground on the different but connected horizons. So we all know the McKinsey model, where Horizon 3 is the large trends developments, and see how you can connect them to the world of today, and try to define the step of tomorrow.
Yeah. So one step on the roadmap is really targeting for something, but don't try to plan everything in advance for that. Be flexible for that, and if you fail, try to fail fast and move on.
Yeah, and move on. Yeah.
So what I had here, it's also a question with regard to data, but I will like to skip it because I see that now we are a bit behind the time, and I don't want to miss the following topic. It was touched upon it quite shortly on cost, on barriers to entry for small players as well here. But I would like to discuss a bit more in detail about the economics and the business model suitable for smart ports. And I would like to invite as well Gert de Wilde. So Lorenzo, if you can help me with having Gert as well here, because he will definitely have an opinion on this topic as well. So because he was resting in the background, I would like to address him the first question. It's a very quite direct question here. Gert, how do you feel it? What is the appetite for investing to become a smart port nowadays?
Thanks to save the most difficult question for me. I think the appetite for investing to become a smart port is there, it exists. Certain ports, of course, are much advanced compared to others. Looking at recent reports, there's still a lot to be done on a global scale. Many ports are simply not connected in a digital way today. They don't have port community systems. And you see that appetite there is growing to become a smart port because they see the real clear advantages. I would like to go back to the start of this debate is, if we listen to the customer, we will know what has to happen and where do we have to put our money. It's clear that there are high investments done by and versus uncertain revenues. That's clear. If you look at based on these two criteria, it's probably going to be a difficult job to convince investors. But if you look at the total supply chain, and so if you start from the position of the cargo owner, it's becoming a different ballgame, because there you see that transparency. There you see really the results of not having to pay the demurrage and detention invoice at the end of the road. and having that connection and that full transparency with the different ports being connected, offering the best solution in an intermodal or even in a synchromodal way, which means in many cases already that you would have to avoid transportation, which is not a single company in the supply chain is going to advise you not to use these services. All of this is becoming possible by investing in a smart port. Looking at the sensors, looking at that part of the data, vessels arriving, optimization, I think the appetite is there. Question is, how high do you put it on the priority list? And again, there, I think looking at energy transition, sustainability, the chances are becoming higher to do the necessary investments to become a smart port. Then, and we do have to take those small baby steps as well to make sure that everybody gets connected with the low entry barrier in a collaboration model. But the investment and the money also has to go back to the supply chain stakeholders. So I believe there is a big appetite for investing, and there are a lot of possibilities for many stakeholders today to look at a different business model.
Yeah. Richard, I know that you have been involved in developing a lot of roadmaps for smart ports, as well in the UK, but also worldwide. How does the problem of budget put forward for technology and innovation? How does it integrate as well with on the roadmap of developing smart ports?
Yeah, I think building these business cases is quite difficult, but in the end, ports are mostly commercial organizations that want to see, are we going to save operating costs? Are we going to operate more profitably somehow? So you do need to be realistic about that. Perhaps with publicly owned or shared ports, that's a little bit more relaxed perhaps, but still it's there, of course. I guess one of the ways of making it a little bit easier is to translate business cases across from other industry verticals and bring tools in from other industries and go, look, we can see this works in airports or in automotive factories. You know, it's tried and trusted technology that we can bring into a port space, and that's sometimes a little bit easier. We've been using some AI tools that we use in airports and road monitoring, for example, and we're using that same tool to monitor asset condition in ports. So it literally cut and paste across. So sometimes if you can even point to things outside ports can really help, I think.
Yeah, okay, great. Martin, what are possible new business models, and which business model can be applicable in the smart ports? I mean, data, it's going to be available more and more, and data is going to be easy to be accessed, and it's happening nowadays at Portbase as well as Nxtport. How does this availability of data changes the business models in ports? How do you experience that?
Yeah, well, we see happening at this moment. As you say, data becomes more available under conditions, of course. We always take a pride in the fact that we are not the owners of the data, but the ones who send it in control the data. So they are in the decision mode with whom to share it. And I think that is of extreme relevance to come up with new business models, new opportunities, propositions for those players. Yeah, for instance, you can attract cargo owners, forwarders to your own portal, where you can provide them with some additional information and establish green lanes, for instance, for terminals, or you can do something with a direct connection to the portals of shipping lines, so that you can pre-order capacity. So I think that data and really think of doing something with your own data in the wider ecosystem context brings out a lot of new business models. And I would like to, as we are here in this setting, that to address that. In the past, I've worked with the TU Eindhoven, Technical University Eindhoven, where they came up with a clever new kind of setting up business models. It's called BaseX, I believe. And it was really a service dominant design. So just put in the middle of the value, what do you want to achieve in your ecosystem? Because that's the way to look at it and to approach it, and see whoever you need to address that value. And all of a sudden you see all kinds of shared business models arise, which we in the old days, and a little bit gray, so I can say that, I did not think of, because we were always thinking out of our own company, our own organization, our own supply chain, and our own primary process. But if you take a service dominant thinking of it, you put the value central, and you try to find the proper partners in it, I think you will be surprised what kind of business models will arise. And now at this moment we are working with some community members on establishing those new business models. So exciting times.
Interesting. Yeah, so if I understand it correctly, does the new business models are also focused on reaching this ultimate goal that all the stakeholders would like to have. So actually integrating in a business model all the elements that you need to have in order to satisfy everybody. That is a very nice objective. It's going to be very nice if it's going to be achieved.
And I think in addition, it's on top of what we already established with the core process, because by providing information to customs, for instance, that's not something to differentiate or to make money. You just need to do it. So that's a common ground which we already digitized. But on top of that, with that data that comes out of it, you can come up with those new business models. So it gives all kinds of new possibilities.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily for increasing profit, but also increasing the quality of services that the ports are offering to their end customers.
Yes, and if I just may add, I think it's also the fact that due to that transparency, and efficiency gain which is needed, application builders will really find what they need in those port community platforms, in the supply chains, to really deliver their solution to the customer. So that will enable also, that will trigger more data on these platforms, and will enable again more solutions which we can deploy worldwide. So communities, digital communities on these platforms are utmost important to reach final goal of having everybody connected.
Yeah. And also a very easy to answer question maybe for you here, because I saved the last save the best for the last year. What do you think it would be a possible business case to do if you talk about port-to-port information exchange there? How do you see that coming into practice?
Well, I do believe that we, looking at the needs of the customer again, there's a lot to be done these days on worker safety, for instance. I'd say everything which is related, of course, to protecting goods and people. There are potential use cases lying in front of us. So I think that's also something which can be deployed in the different ports. Which is something very important. And this requires, of course, also port-to-port information exchange in the long run. The more information you have in advance, the more secure and safe your final supply chain will be. So sustainability, safety, here it comes back again.
Yeah, thank you.
And also, I think, and I agree, Geert, but also what, as Wouter mentioned in this introduction, and we have, if we look at the 2Cs environment, we have the same hinterland, and those forwarders, those transporters are making use of multiple platforms and ports in this area. And so if you look at the wider perspective of an ecosystem, there's value in there as well. So I think that there's another business case which could be explored in the nearby future.
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you very much for your vision on this topic. As well as a really final question, I would like to end up optimistic. I would like to end up looking at really small companies that want to grow in this environment. How do ports help startups to partner in the smart port evolution? What do ports do for that?
Well, I think if we take it from our perspective again, there are a lot of initiatives. The Smart Port initiative we have. There is, well, you guys bringing forward innovations and try to scale up. For us, it is all about establishing that infrastructure, that agenda, and provide the data where we can. To validate the innovations, to help the startups and the scale-ups to validate together with the customers, because that's, as already mentioned, and I would like to stress again, together with the potential customers and the data owners to see what the value is, how we can proceed, and that there's a landing place for those innovations to scale up. I think that's quite a new thing to do, and extremely important, because otherwise, we have a good idea, we have a proof of concept, and then what? Then nothing happens, and that's really a waste.
Yeah, it's a pity indeed.
And just to add, in Antwerp we have some, and of course there is also a port itself, for instance, which is in the Netherlands as well. We have the Beacon in Antwerp, where a lot of potential startups are coming together, bring solutions together on the table to try to involve as much as possible, and that will be more in the future. I think it's also important that we learn app builder startups to use these products. What does it mean, data? What is a port? How does it work? It has a specific dynamic. It's a closed ecosystem as such, so you have to open it up. And these startups will help us to bridge the gap between what the customer wants, the industry 4.0 and beyond, and what we are able to offer today in the logistics world. So I really believe that there is absolutely a big playing field for startups to do business for smart ports.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think this is a very nice takeaway, that there is a future, there is business to be developed as well by startups, and there are new technologies that are in the start blocks now to be launched on the market. So ending up in this environment, in this idea, I would like to make an announcement. Actually, it's a pre-announcement for a future conference that we are organizing in the Speed project. The dates are set for 23rd, 24th of September 2021, so this year. The conference, we took the name as well from a festival that probably will not happen this year, but we'd like to organize the Tomorrow Ports Conference. It's the conference that it aims at connecting European ports to smart tech. So the both sides of the market are going to be brought together in this conference. So all of you are invited to follow up on the updates for this conference, of course, on the LinkedIn, on the Speed platform, where new challenges, new ideas can be shared from the community. And last but not least, I would like to remember everybody, you can go on the Speed website and visit and read the manifesto that we just presented. You can just take a screenshot of this QR code or scan it with your mobile phone, and there you will have a form that you can sign in and support our ideas, our values that should be and are going to be included in Smart Part of the future. So last and not least, I would like to have a big round of applause, virtual applause for our panel discussant. Thank you very much for accepting this challenge. It was a very intensive webinar with a lot of questions, but you have did a good job in answering and addressing all my questions that I had for you prepared. And thank you as well for the audience for following us, for watching and absorbing all the information that was shared today. And we hope to see you soon, and please follow up on the latest updates, not only from the Speed platform, but also from the ports, also from the organizations that have been present today in the webinar. So I would like to close here the webinar. Wouter, you still want something to add?
Perhaps if I can add one thing. So thank you for of course hosting this this entire webinar. I think you did a great job. And indeed, I would like to call on everyone, if you like the content of what we did today, we have indeed developed a manifesto, and we have, I've also put a link in chat, and you have the QR code also. You can visit it and you can support it, and it doesn't cost you anything aside from a couple of seconds. So just put your name in there and yeah, endorse the Smart Port Manifesto, the Smart Port vision that we put here. Yeah, if you do so, you can also select to be notified of our future events and so on, because we will be organizing future events on similar topics, such as the 22 application types and the Smart Port maturity framework that we built, the conference, as Valentin has already mentioned. So if you want to stay in touch, well, let us know there or follow us on LinkedIn.
Okay, great. Thank you, all of you. And yeah, the only wish that I have at this moment is that we can see each other in real life as soon as possible in this summer, in the coming future. So I wish you all have a nice evening and have a nice afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.